Hey everyone, it's Anthony Ramos, and today I'm so excited to be talking to Myles and Precious Brady-Davis. We're going to see them featured on TLC's new series special called My Pregnant Husband, which airs July 23rd at 10 o'clock. Myles and Precious, how are you?
Hello, good to see you.
Hi, we're doing great. Thank you for having us.
Of course. Well, first off, how you doing in quarantine? It's the first question I have to ask everyone these days. It's not going anywhere.
It's this quarantine has really been like a curse and a blessing. It's a curse because we've been watching all the economic turmoil, all the suffering, all the death that's been happening. But then it's been a blessing because we've been at home with our little baby watching all of little Zane's milestones in real time. So I'm loving the time that I get to bond with my family, but I'm sad for the world.
I have been on parental leave, and this is not how I expected that I'd be spending my parental leave. I thought that I was going to be pushing a stroller through Chicago museums and hanging out in Chicago's parks, but we have just created our own little kitty wonderland at home with Zane, and it feels so special because not everyone has the opportunity to be able to spend the first 7 months of
we'll probably be spending the rest of the year.
but still, like, most people don't have the opportunity to spend the first 7 months with their child, and we've got to see every milestone, every development. And I just said to Myles this morning, I can't imagine not being there every moment to see these moments live. And so it actually has been a blessing in disguise.
So let's talk about Zane, because this series really documents the final months as the two of you get ready to become parents for the first time. So how is being, parents? Like, is it everything you thought it would be? Is it more challenging? Tell me everything.
Oh, well, it's an amazing experience because here you are watching this little thing that half of it looks like you, the other half looks like my beautiful wife. I'm so glad she got my beautiful wife's face. But during the day it's amazing. At night it's a nightmare because, especially at the beginning, Zane did not want to go to sleep. And like I said, she acts a lot like
exhaustion.
My diva wife. So she doesn't just like cry, I'm hungry. She like Mariah Carey screeches, she's hungry. We're raising a little diva.
But for me, being from Nebraska, I did not see various depictions of queer family growing up. And I had a very tumultuous childhood. And motherhood is something that is very fractured and painful to me. So becoming a mother has been very healing. And when I pick her up and I see the light in her eyes that Myles and I are her world, like we believe that we are creating a new trans reality, a new trans future. And it has just given me a new lease on life. And I am a woman who is dedicated to her career. I have 10 years of nonprofit administration experience, and I feel that my new calling is mom, and that has been a deeply emotional inflection point.
What I love so much about this TL series and what it shows, it really highlights your love story, and we need to see, and we need America to see more trans love stories. So what is it you hope that people that see the show on July 23rd, what do you want them to take away from it?
Well, just like you said, the world definitely needs to see more, trans love stories. And for me, one of the biggest reasons why I even want to do this show is because not only do the world need to see more trans love stories, the world needs to see more Black trans love stories. So I jumped at this opportunity so the entire world could see me doting on my beautiful, biracial trans wife, and also I was doing it for, my younger self. I came out at the age of 5 in 1986. So I didn't say that I was trans because we weren't using that vocabulary then. I just knew that I wanted to be my father when I grew up. So my entire life watching TV, I never saw, a dad that looked like me, So now it's like I said, I'm doing this for my 12-year-old self that, I I wish I would have been able to witness this, you know, to see like a proud Black transmasculine person, you know, proud in my pregnancy, you know, and also being vulnerable and, you know, sharing part of my journey. Yeah, you know, pregnancy gets hard sometimes, but it gets hard no matter what you identify as. And I just want to share all of that with the world.
And I think that we embody humanity at a time when we see an epidemic of violence, specifically against trans people. We also know that there are tons of negative stereotypes and tropes when it comes to the depiction of trans people, whether we are murdered and our lives aren't given meaning. And so Myles and I embody the humanity of the trans experience, that we are another narrative of the arc that shatters people's misconceptions of who and what trans people can be, and specifically trans people of color.
Absolutely. And I think this special, because, you know, of course, I got a sneak peek at it, I've already seen it. It does a really nice job at, you know, just showing that a couple like yourself go through and have the same challenges and the same joys and the same highs and the same lows that any other couple has. So I wanted to talk to you guys more about your love story, because, you know, I remember that we get a little bit of a backstory on you guys, but how did you first meet? Tell me, you know, I mean, I think it was pretty much love at first sight from what I've heard in the special.
Well. So it was like for me.
Set the record straight.
Right. So look, first let me start by this. When I was growing up, every single night, my dad would read me and my siblings, like, you know, children's stories about love stories, the prince meeting the princess and all that. So, you know, I bought into all of that, and I always, like, in my mind was wishing, like, and it's sad because when I was a kid, I was like, man, I wish I would have a love story like that, but I thought I never could because I was trans. And then here I am in like real time living the love story that, you know, I always wanted to be a part of. So back to the story. So one day I was at a community center because I started a center, a group for trans people on the south side of Chicago. So my mentor at the time told me that I needed to meet this person named Precious, who worked on the north side of town. So one day I go up there and I tell the receptionist, I'm here to see Precious Davis. I hear like some shoes in the background. And before I even turned around, my spirit was like, when you turn around, your entire life is about to change because you're about to meet your person. And I turned around and boom, like I was done. Like the second I saw her, like I saw my future flash before my eyes. Like I saw the kid, I saw, you know, our marriage, you know, I saw the house we live in, like I saw all of that. So it was love at first sight for me. For her, it took her a little bit.
It wasn't for me. So I worked at Center on Halsted for 3 years, and I oversaw the youth program there and oversaw youth outreach. And I was very vested in my job, and working with homeless LGBT youth can be very taxing. And at that point, I didn't want to date. Like the young people, like they were the core focus of my life. I took their stories home with me. It was hard for me to sleep. Like I was thinking about them at night. And so I didn't even have the capacity to date. And so I would see Myles at all of the trans community events. Laverne Cox would come to town, Myles would be there. Janet Mock would come to town, Myles would be there, because he knew that I would be there.
I recruited one of her friends, Angelica Ross, and I said, Angelica.
We love Angelica.
Yeah, she's the best. She is the best. So I told her, I said, Angelica, because she was looking for an assistant at the time, and I said, Angelica, I'll be your assistant. And the only payment I want is just let me know every single event that Precious is going to be on.
It's true. And so for a whole year, I told him no. And I would send him these long screed text messages. I'm a woman of victory. I'm a woman of excellence. Now's not the time. And he was just relentless. Like he would not give up. I mean, he showed up at my job one night and he's like, can I take you to dinner? And he was very chivalrous, like he was very chivalrous from the start. And so I was like, okay, I'll take you to dinner. And it ended up being a sushi restaurant. And after we got together, I found out he's allergic to fish.
Oh, thank you.
And so finally, Myles found out that I was going to the Philadelphia Trans Health Conference, which so many of us girls in Chicago went. It was like a yearly pilgrimage that we all went on as girls who worked in social service. And as I am getting on my flight for Philadelphia, I looked down at my phone, and just in the subject line of an email, Myles had written, "I can't wait to see you in Philly."
And the rest is history.
And I just kind of like, I was like, oh, okay. So he had entered into my world, like literally entered into my email box. And that day, Janet Mock was the keynote speaker at the Philadelphia Trans Health Conference, and we went to lunch, and Myles totally put like a plug like in her ear that that he liked me. And so I was like, oh, like I'll give him a chance. And so later that night, we all like had this beautiful dinner.
And I got that chance.
It was like Joanna Safredo was there, Gina Rosero was there, Janet Mock was there. And we were all just like having a good time. And that night, Myles came in and he said, "You're the most beautiful woman I've ever seen in my life, and I want to be with you." And I saw him differently.
And that was it. And
that was it. And we left Philly as a couple, and we've been together ever since.
So then, okay, so that's how you met. That's the beginning, and then obviously marriage happened. How many years have you been married?
Almost 6, right?
Yeah.
Right? Is that right? No, we've been together for 6. 4?
4 years.
And then this show documents your journey into parenthood.
Right.
What was it like to have, cameras and people documenting, obviously a very emotional, a very private time in your lives? I mean, not everyone is used to having cameras following around, but what was it like for you?
Well, for me, when I decide I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it, and I'm going to give it my all. And also, like I said, I was doing this for my 12-year-old self. There's already not a lot of information out there on people going through IVF. So there's not a lot of information out there for trans masculine people that want to know about it. So it's like, even though it was very invasive at times, I was willing to put all that down because I knew, I was doing this for educational reasons, and I was doing this for my community. Black trans masculine people aren't often seen on TV. So I wanted to make sure that I took that moment and was going to be vulnerable for my community, even though I knew outside eyes would be looking, but I knew this was going to be something great for us.
And I think people would be surprised to know that this was Myles' idea, that often in our relationship that I am the forward-facing one who does media and am the keynote speaker of the family. While Myles works in communications, I am the most visible in our family.
I like to be behind the scenes.
And I wanted to actually protect him through this experience. I wanted to Uber him to the office, and he would visibly just get on the bus every day and be a proud pregnant trans masculine person. And so when he told me that he wanted to share our story, I wanted to support him fully, because I think that was also like part of the journey of this is the legacy that Myles wants to tell, that he brought life into the world, and he was a pregnant trans masculine person, and he was proud. And yeah, it was certainly an experience. I think I am currently in a vulnerable lane anyway, as I'm finishing up my memoir. My memoir is going to be coming out next year with Topple and Amazon Publishing. And so I've been going through this own excavation process in myself. And so, like Myles said, how he talks about his 12-year-old self, I come from, like I said, I come from a very fractured home. I was born in Nebraska, and I did not see people who looked like me growing up. And so if I can, and Myles and I can be an example for one young person to see that there is hope on the other side, that they can find love, that they are worthy of family, and that nurturing, that is something that can be in our lives as trans and gender nonconforming folks, then we have done our work. As Myles said, we are people who believe in legacy. We're in the legendary lane. And this is about legacy.
I love that. What do you think it would have been like for you, for either of you, if you were 12 years old, younger, and there would have been a show like this that showed two Black trans people in a very, real, normal relationship? who have children. What would that have been like for you to see something like that?
For me, it would have been a game changer. Even though my family was very supportive, gave me a lot of love, respected me, let me do my thing. I went to a private school growing up. So it's like at school, I would be like one of the only Black kids. And then when I'm with my family and I'm the world, it's like I'm this like queer thing. I knew, trans women existed, but I didn't know trans guys existed. Like I didn't even meet my first Black trans, I didn't meet first Black until I was like maybe 23. And when I saw them, it was just like, whoa, like there's more of me, So I've always felt like very alienated. So, representation really matters. And when you're able to see yourself, on screen or reflected in society, that does so much to you. It's almost like when, Barack Obama became president, it's like by seeing that example, that opened up so many lanes for so many people. So seeing a show like this, number one, I would have felt that I was worthy of love at an earlier age. Mm-hmm. And number two, I would have felt, more secure within myself, that it doesn't matter what's going on with my body or even how my body looks, it doesn't take away from who I am as a person.
I think that representation, when it speaks to identity and origin story, that it provides inspiration. I clung onto Angel de Machinard from Rent like it was a worn out coat. Seeing Angel in Rent showed me that I could be. She was the first representation of gender, of that she really kind of exploded of my perception of who I could be. That she put a face on everything that I embodied at the time. And I think that's so important for young people. I think it's also important for parents, mm-hmm. teachers, so that people have different kinds of representation that they can identify with. And that is who I also hope sees it, that that I have former teachers who never ever thought that I would ever make it. I remember in college, I had professors who said, I don't know what to do with you. And I was in a theater program and I went to a liberal arts college, and they see me today and they say, I am so proud of you that you found your way. And I know that that is the experience of so many trans people across the spectrum.
When we see people like Dwayne Wade and Gabrielle Union, publicly talk about accepting a child that they have who is trans, what does that mean, especially for, I feel like what you are doing with this show, and when people like Dwayne and Gabrielle get involved and publicly support their trans child, what does that mean for impact, especially for communities of color, to hear about these stories and these messages of acceptance?
I mean, it's a matter of life and death. I feel if I didn't have the support of my family, the way that Gabrielle Union and Dwayne Wade are supporting their child, I wouldn't have been able to make it. So, now seeing their story, it's like I'm loving it, because I know that just, the world seeing that, not only is it going to do so much for their child, but it's also going to do something, for a child that might be living in a rural community that doesn't have supportive parents. So they know that, it's not me. It's on my parents if they don't respect me, because I see there's examples of people that are supporting their families,
And for me, it's extra special because Gabrielle Union is from Nebraska. She's from Omaha.
And I'm from Chicago.
She's from Omaha like me. And to see another woman of color from Omaha, Nebraska, openly loving their trans child, it takes me back to my youth. I was kicked out when I was in 7th grade. My grandmother packed all my stuff into white trash bags and dropped it off at my school and left. She didn't know how to deal with me. She didn't know what a young person wearing high heels, she didn't know what that meant. And so for me, it's very personal, mm-hmm. that someone who has a platform, mm-hmm. and can speak to another part of the population, mm-hmm. openly loving their child, that is revolutionary.
And defending their child too.
And defending their child, especially, you know, when we see the stigma, especially amongst faith communities, you know, amongst like people of color, like we need to see more representation of people loving queer and trans folks openly, especially among communities of color.
100%. So before we wrap up, I want to talk more about Zane. So on the special, the TLC special, we see Zane's first moments into this world. So did you say 7 months now?
Yes.
7 months, okay. So 7 months into both being parents, which one of you is the stricter parent?
Me.
Which one of you spoils Zane more?
No, me.
Oh.
Amazon comes every day.
That's me. I am the one who orders her the Amazon toys.
Well, you see that she gets equally spoiled by both of us.
Yes. Oh, yeah, that's a good question, Precious. So so I know when when you both were expecting, the roles shifted. I know you said usually you're the diva.
Yeah.
Is that back
But
now?
I was the Devo.
Now that the baby's been born?
What was the question?
Have you reassumed your role as the diva now that the baby?
Hello, look at me.
Yeah.
So,
And now I'm actively like trying to get like pregnant again just so I can
oh my God.
reclaim my role.
Yes, I have reclaimed my position on the throne.
But
And Myles, are you still eating macaroni and cheese for breakfast, or did that go away?
No, it did not go away. He's still eating like soul food at like crazy moments of the day, like all the time.
I love it. It's been a pleasure to meet you both, and it's been so wonderful to hear about your love story and becoming parents. And everyone out there, you can see more of their story on My Pregnant Husband, which will premiere on TLC at 10 o'clock on July 23rd.